Hi, everyone. Well, I promised I'd be back very soon with Alter Hines, Martha Alter Hines, who's a wonderful American astrologer, and she's going to be sharing some information with you that I know is going to be new for most of you. Martha actually started her career as a clinical social worker, and she was dealing in the area of trauma, specializing in trauma and the prevention of child abuse. So, really precious work. She also has a very deep passion for social and environmental justice as well. That's really very close to her heart. And she had a sort of spiritual awakening, I believe that was in 2018, Martha. And since then, her astrology has really just gone in leaps and bounds. And she already has a very distinct voice, I think, particularly in researching the less familiar orbital bodies. Martha, I think that's really where your eye goes to. And it's even teaching very long in the tooth astrologers new information. So we thank you for that as well. So, because you do work at a very deep level. And so Martha is going to be talking about 4 different orbital bodies. A couple of them I've referred to fleetingly before. One is a dwarf planet, and there's a centaur, but also Martha's going to be bringing through information on 2 asteroids, which I think will be new to all of you. And then at the end, because Martha is increasingly channeling the inner earth beings, I'm going to be asking her if she'd be happy to do that and bring forward a message for us at this time. So, Martha, over to you. Very excited to hear what you have to share with us and everyone listening tonight.
Well, thank you, Pam. It's an incredible honor. And I've said this before privately and publicly, and I just want to say it again that I want to acknowledge and honor the specific role that I feel you playing on the planet and for the planet. And I mean, I know people say this constantly, but I feel like it needs to be said again. And and I also want to name that partly because um I've just been noticing more and more how much each of us has this very specific role, right? And a very specific signature and even a specific light signature, I would say. And and I've noticed this for years with you, but even more and more recently that when I am in your presence, either directly like this or I'm watching a video of yours, whatever it is, even if I just think of you, what I feel energetically for myself, and I'm guessing a lot of people feel this, is that your light signature, your being helps me to ground fully here as earth and the light of earth. And then I said this to you before, it's like I get this hooked straight up into source. And then I get this feeling from you, even before you and I connected directly, as humans, even years ago, when I very first started channeling and all of that, I just had the sense from your spirit of keep going, go, just do it. Just- and no matter what other people think, please keep going. But that was really the feeling I had from you, even before you knew who I was. So I don't have any words for how much that means to me. And
I'm really touched by that, Martha. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yes, I've got a warrior rebel spirit, but it's remarkable what you say about the grounding because I've got almost no earth in my chart. So I take that as a massive compliment. So so bless you. I'm very touched by that. And thank you. Thank you for sharing those words. So
mhm,
so
wonderful.
yeah, I really agree, Martha. We all, and I think it's getting clearer and clearer that so many of us, certainly in our astrological world, have a very specific piece of the puzzle, and some loud, some big, some small. It doesn't matter. You need every single piece to make the whole work, and we must treasure that. And I think the unique essence of each of us is going to come through even more strongly in 2025. We're going to be called upon to do that.
Exactly. And when I was praying this morning or last night, the my guides, the biggest thing they kept saying was, look, none of this actually matters except for the point that you are here, you meaning me, but you and I think everybody listening, you are here to usher in the new era. Period. The end. That's the only thing that actually matters. And what I think is so beautiful is that the beings we're going to be talking about in terms of the astrology of 2025 that you requested that we speak to actually are perfectly in line with that message, right? So, um, yeah, and I agree. It's just every single person has their own divine puzzle piece, and if we could do one thing right now as we're moving into 2025, if we can release any doubt, you know, that we don't matter, that our voice doesn't matter, that our uniqueness doesn't exist, whatever it is, if we could just collectively all let that go,
Yeah.
that right there would revolutionize the world. Literally, literally.
Yeah, I really agree 100%. That's old energy. That's old stuff. Just let it fall away. And we just
Yeah.
hitch our wagon to a star and off we go because it's going to be speedy. It's a very speedy, speedy wagon.
See, that's exactly what I was just talking about. That's what you helped me do is hitch my, what did you just say? Hitch
Hitch
my,
your wagon to a star.
there you go. That's exactly it. Wow. And that ties in so perfectly with some of the things we're going to talk about in a second. So, um,
Beautiful.
should I
Beautiful.
dive in?
Yeah, dive in whenever you're ready to start, Martha. I'm really looking forward to this.
Well, yeah, it's just uncanny how these things all tie together so perfectly. And so, yeah, it's going to take me a second just to get this into the correct presentation mode. There we go. Can
Yeah.
you see that okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Awesome. Okay. So the three beings that you, Pam, requested that we look at are Nessus, Astraea, and Diana. And so, like you said, for people who don't know, Nessus is one of the four main centaurs. Astraea and Diana are both asteroids in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. And then I'm going to bring this in a minute, but when I was looking at the astrology of Astraea and Diana, it was kind of impossible to talk about them without also bringing in Varda. And Varda is one of the Kuiper belt objects. Um, so we're going to bring in her as a fourth, but these are the three that you originally wanted to speak to. And so I had looked initially at the astrology related to these beings, and actually I had gone through I had gone through the astrology of 2025 and all the main planets, and then all four centaurs and a bunch of asteroids and all the main Kuiper belt objects that I work with, and then two of the Oort cloud. I had gone through so much. Um, so I looked at these briefly, but when you identified these three as being the ones you really wanted to look at today, I went more deeply into their significance in 2025. And what I found in terms of how they play in together is just fascinating. Yeah, so that's what we're going to be doing here.
Beautiful.
And just really briefly to give context for people who aren't familiar with this, because like you said, a lot of these things are new. Um, Here is an image of our main solar system. So we have the sun obviously as a star in the center of our the center of our solar system, and then we have the inner planets, and these are called the personal planets: Mercury, Venus, Mars, and then we get to the asteroid belt. And the asteroid belt is this, countless number of objects between Mars and Jupiter. And two of the beings we're going to be talking about today, Astraea and Diana, are in this asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. So I just want to give that as a beginning taste of when I'm working with asteroids, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this too, Pam. It feels really important to remember, well, and actually with all of these things, with anything in astrology, it feels important to remember where they are and what they are. So really meeting the beings where they are and for who they actually are, right? So an asteroid is very, very, very different than, let's say, if we're talking about Mercury, like a planet, or even a Kuiper Belt object. When you're talking about Varda, who has a similar story to Astraea, but is in a very different part of our solar system. So Astraea is one of the asteroids here, but Varda is way out here near Pluto in the Kuiper Belt, right? Um, so I think that's really important when we feel their energy and the role that maybe they're holding in existence. Yeah, and so anyway, so we have the inner planets, then the asteroid belt, then Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and then once we get to Neptune, then we start the Kuiper belt, and Pluto is the first now identified Kuiper belt object, and then you and I and lots of other people are working very much with lots and lots and lots of other Kuiper belt objects. And we're going to be talking about Varda today. And then tying together lots of these kind of outer planets are the centaurs. And we're going to be talking about one of those today, which is Nessus. Yeah, so just to give context that our solar system is really large, and all of the beings in our solar system have a really different energy and a really different signature, and just like we each have these different signatures, right? And so they hold a different role, and not to lump them all together as one kind of a thing. Anything you want to say before I
Yeah, I
move on
think
to?
that's a really excellent point because, if we're looking at a dwarf planet like Sedna and I know you've done a lot of work with Sedna, Martha, with an 11,400-year orbit, the very fact her orbit is that long changes the way we see her in terms of, she's coming closer to perihelion, totally different, as you say, if we're looking at Mercury whizzing around so rapidly. So it's got a utterly different quality and a different space in our consciousness, I want to say, because I actually see these orbiting bodies as probability waves of consciousness.
Yeah, yeah,
And
beautiful.
and the further out you get, the more expansive the energy
Yeah,
becomes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes, beautiful. Yeah, and so I'll just say, you and Kathy Rose already did their incredibly extensive video detailing all of, so much about the astrology of 2025. And then I loved, loved, loved your themes of astrology the themes of 2025 video also, your English version. But so I won't repeat any of that, but I'll just say that it feels really important also to name that when we're thinking about astrology in general, but if we're thinking about, let's say, the astrology of 2025, the themes going on with these outer planets like Pluto moving into Aquarius and et cetera, all of that, that's the underpinning. Like that's laying the foundation for what all of these things we're going to be talking about today then can inform, right? So the things we're going to be talking about today, I don't see as foundational. I see them as fascinating and beautiful, and they add so much nuance and information and beauty to how we can engage with this coming year, and life. Um, but
And
it's all the yeah, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
also think, Martha, that because we're beginning to investigate and speak about them, they are another aspect of this higher octave of consciousness as well. It isn't just the Kuiper Belt objects, it's also the centaurs and the asteroids. They are coming in as part of our psyche as we move forwards.
Definitely, for sure. And yeah, when we talk about this, it'll become clear why we don't want to forget them because they make a big difference. Yeah. Okay, so again, we're going to be mainly talking about Nessus, Astraea, Diana, and then we're going to bring in Varda. So we're going to start with Nessus. And the real expert on Nessus is Melanie Reinhardt, and I want to acknowledge her and thank her. And I had incredible pleasure of having a long conversation with her a couple weeks ago about Nessus, because when I told her that we're going to be having this conversation, she was so sweet and said, well, would you like to talk about it? I said, yes, please. So a lot of this, if anybody wants to dive more deeply, she has written this book called Chiron, Pholus, and Nessus, To the Edge and Beyond. And there are lots of other resources, and she has a beautiful website, etc. So I'm just honoring, thanking, and sending a lot of love to Melanie. Okay, so, but the basics of Nessus, let me come back to these details in 1 second, tell you who Nessus is. So you've mentioned her, Pam, in lots of your recent videos, and like you keep mentioning, Melanie's main theme with Nessus is the buck stops here. And again, here's a picture of her book. And she recently she was a speaker in my astrology, year-long astrology course. And that workshop is available publicly too, if anybody wants to dive more deeply into all 4 of the centaurs. But so you've also said a little bit about this in some of your videos recently. The basic gist of the Nessus story is that in Greek mythology, Nessus was responsible for, inadvertently or maybe deliberately, responsible for the death of Hercules or Heracles. And so long story short, essentially, at one point, Nessus was carrying the wife of Heracles or Hercules across a river, and Hercules, and he was attempting to rape the wife, and so Hercules shot a hydra poisoned arrow, and Nessus was therefore dying. And while he was dying, he told the wife of Hercules that his blood would ensure that Hercules would always be faithful to her, and so she believed him. We don't know why she would believe him in that moment, but anyway, as the story goes, she did. And then, again, long story short, essentially, that same blood led to Hercules' death. Okay, so what I love that Melanie points out about this story is that Hercules, if you know the very long saga about Hercules, he goes through these labors, right? And he suffers a lot, and he has struggle and drama and violence, and it goes on and on and on and on. And through this act of, you could say, betrayal by Nessus, finally Hercules ends this saga. Okay, so I think that's part of why Melanie then attributes the Nessus energy to this feeling of the buck stops here. Like, we just gotta, like, let's end this. let's stop all this suffering, right? Let's stop all this drama that's been going on and on and on and on.
I think that is a huge, huge part of 2025.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Yes. And then another part of what Melanie says that I just want to bring in that I think is really key when we're thinking about Nessus, especially because, again, Nessus is not a planet, it's a centaur. So the centaurs all essentially they're connecting the orbits of, different ones connect different orbits, but they're connecting the orbits of the outer planets. So Saturn and Jupiter and Pluto and Neptune and Uranus. They're kind of the centaurs help to connect all of the roles of those outer planets. And for Nessus in particular, what Melanie says, I love this quote from her book. The Nessus process is one that is perhaps not meant to be enacted or put into material form, but rather acts as a transformer and purifier. Right there, that word for me is really key. Transformer and purifier, linking the energies of Saturn and Pluto. Okay, and so now if we go back to the actual astrology of Nessus in 2025, what becomes so interesting, beautiful, important is 3 main things. So first, in just over a month, February 7th, Nessus is going to conjunct Saturn at 18 degrees of Pisces. And then June 20th, Nessus goes retrograde at 21 Pisces, almost exactly conjunct the north node of the moon. And then just 5 days later, it will be conjunct the north node of the moon again at 21 degrees of Pisces. So I would love to hear your thoughts on this. My initial feeling is that with Nessus being in Pisces, and especially conjunct Saturn. I mean, Saturn, so Nessus has to do with, the buck stops here and let's stop these old patterns. Let's just be done, right? And Saturn also has to do with similar things, old patterns and old structures and all of that. And they're coming together in Pisces. So for me, the first thing that arises is this possibility of radical forgiveness, radical letting go. Like let's like all those, anything, kind of any chip on the shoulder or let's be done. Let's just finally let it go, right? I could say more, but I would love your thoughts.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant insight, Martha, really brilliant. And isn't it interesting that if Melanie, who's the real expert on centaurs originally, talks about it as a transformer and purifier of Saturn and Pluto, of course, we had that incredibly important conjunction of Saturn and Pluto, 12th of January 2020, that set off the last, 4 or 5 years, didn't it? And so it's now come full circle. It's now, back to the, but it's starting a new cycle, not on the same train tracks, but at a higher level. We
Oh,
shifted consciousness, shifted energy. I just thought of that. So we've broken out of the train tracks. You know, we're
oh,
we're breaking out of the hamster wheel of the predictable paradigm. And so this is actually more important, I'm realizing in this moment, than I realized when I suggested that you look at Nessus. So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
happening in the moment. So yeah, I think this is huge for where we are going. And for some people, although they may find it unlikely that we just let it all go, we have to, because it's part of that new consciousness. We're moving away from the judgment and the blame and the pointy fingers to unity consciousness. And it's the only way we're going to move into that is to let that stuff go.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll throw in one other thing, which is, again, like you mentioned, in my background, for many, many years, I was a psychotherapist working in the child welfare system. And so I specialized in trauma and all of that. And I've talked a lot about this with Heather Ensworth, who also, of course, is a therapist specializing in trauma. And we both, we know from our experience that it's not responsible, I guess you could say, to I don't want to sit here saying that I think we should just snap our fingers and think that all trauma is gone. That's definitely obviously not what I'm saying. However, I do think that 2025 holds the potential for us in quantum levels actually to release karma and to release trauma, right? But if a person, I just want to name this, if a person is truly needing psychotherapy, please go get that support. I'm not advocating spiritual bypassing. And at the same time, now that I've named that caveat, I really do think that on an energy body level, it's like unlike any other time before that I've felt, where I think we can finally let it go. Yeah, there's no reason to hang on to it. Why would we hang on to it?
Because as long as we do, we're in the old paradigm.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Beautiful.
Okay. Beautiful. So then, speaking of the new paradigm, see, this is how it's like so beautiful, how these things. I don't think you realized or I realized how perfectly these fit together. Okay. It's
We're
like-
co-creating in the moment, Martha.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So then now when we bring in Astraea and Diana, which were your other two requests, what is so amazing is that in 2025, Astraea and Diana both are going to be going they're going to be doing their retrograde right at the galactic center. So they're going to spend most of 2025 in Sagittarius near the galactic center. And Varda, as you've been talking about, Pam, for a couple of years, has been sitting with the galactic center as a Kuiper belt object, right? So Varda moves very slowly compared to Diana and Astraea. But Varda has basically been sitting there right at in the same part of the sky where we can see the black hole of our Milky Way galaxy. Varda has been sitting there this for a couple of years.
Yeah, a couple of years. 27 of Sagittarius.
Yeah. And she's still there. And she'll go up to 29 degrees of Sagittarius this year and then, go retrograde. So basically when Astraea and Diana are sitting there with the galactic center, I couldn't not bring in Varda because she's been there. She's been holding down the fort, of this direct connection with our center of our galaxy, which is just so magical to begin with. So these three goddesses really will be together in 2025. I don't know what, holding this space for us as we connect in with source, with who we really are. So just briefly to talk about each of the three of them and who they are and the different qualities they bring. You've mentioned Astraea, I think, in at least a couple of your videos.
Yeah, but not in any depth.
Okay.
Agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, Astraea, the gist of Astraea is that in mythology, she was the last of the immortals to leave the earth at the end of the Golden Age. And so one by one, so originally in the Golden Age, according to Greek myth, the gods and goddesses lived with the humans, and but as humanity began to have more suffering and violence and darkness and all of that, the gods and goddesses started to get fed up and they started to leave the earth. But Astraea was really committed. She really was wanting to be here to help, as I think we can probably all relate to, right? And but eventually it got too difficult, and so eventually she left, and she became the constellation of Virgo. And then the mythology says that when Astraea returns, that will be the beginning of the next golden age. So the way I think of Astraea personally is that we are all Astraea, and we are all this quality of being connectors of this, like you just said, hook our wagon to a star. Exactly. That's Astraea for me. And that's who I think lots and lots and lots of us are here to be Astraea. Basically, we are Astraea. We are here to bring back the golden age. That's literally what we're doing. So when I see Astraea so prominent in the astrology this year, it's like, that's just really what comes up for you when you
Yeah,
notice.
two things for me, Martha. One is that she really does embody the divine as well as the human.
Mm,
And that's such an important theme in 2025. What does it mean to be human? Well, part of what it means to be human is having that divine connection, which Astraea did very, very strongly. But also, as part of her myth, apparently, she was able to maintain balance, inner balance and equilibrium, even with chaos all around her. So I
yes.
think that's a very important part of her quality too, that we are going to have to learn our mastery in 2025 to achieve that constant state of equilibrium, peace, bliss, even when things are collapsing around us of the old world.
Yes, beautiful. And so as you can see in this image, right, for anybody who doesn't know, so Astraea is one of the many, many, many goddesses associated with the Virgo constellation. But when the goddess of so the goddess of the Virgo constellation is holding the scales of Libra, as you can see in this picture with Astraea, right? And so, yes, exactly. Hadn't even put all of that together. That's so important. Wow.
Yeah, because she's linked to harmony and justice as well, which is interesting.
Yes. Beautiful. Yeah, and I'm just going to go back one second to talk a little bit more about the astrology of this, so it'll make a little more sense as I move forward. So the reason that the Galactic Center is so important this year is, I mean, the galactic center is always important, but just to name, part of what's going on is that the nodes in just a little over a week are going to switch into Virgo and Pisces. And when they do that, they're going to be squaring the galactic center. I mean, the nodes are already essentially squaring the galactic center, but as they are in those end degrees of Virgo and Pisces, and through the first few months of 2025, the nodes of the moon are going to be squaring the galactic center. And so they're also going to be squaring the galactic center in our first eclipse season in March.
Yeah.
So anything near the galactic center is therefore also going to be getting squared by the nodes of the moon and will be really highlighted in that first eclipse season. It's in that first eclipse season, the day after the second of the two eclipses, when Neptune goes from Pisces into Aries. So really, really key. I mean, the galactic center is just going to be like highlighted so powerfully, and with those three goddesses sitting right there with it.
And that, Martha, isn't this interesting? Because I think of our galactic center as the primary thing that produces the kind of raw energy from which we create our world. We create our materiality and our matter. So in it being square to the nodes of the moon, and the North Node is our collective path of destiny, there's such a strong sense of rebirth here. And then bingo, 30th of March, Neptune moves onto that creator degree, the very first degree of the zodiac. At every level, I've looked at this huge time cycles, smaller time cycles. It's rebirth, 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 all the way through. New beginning, new beginning, new beginning, in a really major way. And yet, here's just another message of that too. Very strong.
Yeah. And again, to go back to the Nessus conjunct Saturn and all of that, again, we have to let go in order to rebirth, right? We have to let go. We have to. Yeah.
It's like you can't carry that chest of misery and karma with you into the future. You just can't, because we're moving into a much lighter future. You can't drag it like a ball and chain and expect the future to work well. You've got to just drop it.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so then Diana brings in such an amazing, and again, I didn't get how important this was until I was diving into it, because you requested it. Wow. Diana is so, so beautiful. So, again, the very, very basic gist of Diana, and you jump in with anything you know. Diana is also Artemis, so she is the goddess of the hunt. She's very much associated with our sovereignty, and this is what I think is really key and important. She has a very strong connection with the earth, with animals, with our wildness, like our most natural way of being, and our inner knowing of our inner power and the web of all of life. She's also a protectress of women, children, and animals. Yeah, I could say more, but you jump in. Anything
Yeah,
particularly?
I love Dana. This link with sovereignty, goddess of sovereignty, that's coming up, again and again and again, isn't it? In the other astrology we look at typically. But also she reminds me of Lilith. She's got echoes of Lilith and echoes of Eris. They're strong female archetypes that are utterly uncompromising. They stand in their warrior spirit for love, for justice, for equality, for the earth, for balance with nature, and they're utterly uncompromising. And I love the way this is coming up when with so many of the dwarf planets are talking about our connection, our shamanic, our instinctive connection with the earth and ancient wisdom, which I think is going to be part of New Earth that we remember, we bring back. And Diana is another reinforcement of that. So beautiful.
Yes, and I think this will come through probably when I channel in a minute. But also our what I've been feeling so much in my channeling is Gaia is ascending as we are, right? I mean, we all know that, but that this connection between our rebirth and the rebirth of Gaia herself happening together, that we are beings of Gaia. We are Gaians, like, Jude Caravan says, right? So we can't assume that we're doing this as humans by ourselves. That doesn't make any sense. It's all a collective. And I think the Diana energy is really bringing that forward powerfully. There's so much there. I get chills. Okay. And then Varda. Yeah. So again, you've talked about Varda lots and lots and lots. Kelly Hunter talks about Varda. And you and Kelly have had conversations. Kelly and I have had conversations about Varda. I love Varda so much. And there's so many things we could say, but just briefly, Varda is the partner of Manwë, and they are the two creator god, the creator god and goddess in the Silmarillion, which is a Tolkien novel that was published after his death. And one of the things I find really fascinating about Varda and Manwë is that when they are together, their divine union essentially makes it possible for them together to be able to see and hear through everything. And another thing important to me about Varda is that she's similar to Astraea, very deeply connected to the light and to stars. And but you jump in. What, you know her better than I do. What?
Yeah, beautiful. Well, I wouldn't go that far, Martha, because I think you're extremely expert in these. But with that creation myth, Varda and Manwë were said to create the universe originally, and they are in such strong positions. I mean, Manwë has been on the world axis for the last couple of years. Those very early creator degrees. Varda is now on the galactic center very tightly. And so again, we're getting these very strong messages of they're going to create another universe, they're going to create another world, they're going to create another new earth. And it's so strong. And so, yes, I think she's very connected to the light, and that links to Salacia, dwarf planet Salacia as well. I think we're going to be learning so much more about the light, and light as information and how we create with light. I think that's more and more people starting to speak light language. I think light is it's very interesting with Uranus moving into Gemini in July. One of the previous times it was in Gemini, there was a whole new theory of light that was developed around light being a wave and a particle, etc., etc. So I think light and the out there in the cosmos is such a big part of Varda's myth that we're going to understand even more deeply as we move forwards.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And there's so much I could say there. Yes. Interest of time, I'll move on, but I just second all of that. Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, and so, I think when I sit back and I think about the picture, the big picture, like we've been talking about what's going on in the main astrology we usually talk about, and then we bring in these kind of extra cosmic allies and lots of others. The underlying fundamental question I've personally been feeling is, what kinds of structures are we releasing, like we're talking about with Nessus, and then what are we co-creating together, and how are we going to do that? And of course, as we know, as you've talked about in many other places, the big thing coming, I think, is the eventual Saturn-Neptune conjunction on February 20th, 2026, right? Like, I think 2025, in a sense, is preparing us for that conjunction at 0 degrees of Aries.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. I haven't been able to find a time in history when that's happened. A very clever mathematician told me it was well over 12,000 years ago, because of course it happens reliably. They come together every 36 years, but not at 0 of Aries. That's very specific. And I totally agree with you. I think 2025 is the year of transition, the year of breakdown, breakthrough, to set stronger foundations for that February 2026 date. And that's a whole new launch pad, launch pad of consciousness, humanity, etc. I think 2026 will actually be a much easier year than 2025. But we just keep our vision on that. But so I would agree 100%. And we have to be much more conscious and aware of being co-creators as we go through this year, Martha. I think, don't you, that we just tend to rumble and jumble along in our busy days and do the shopping list and do our work and make supper, and we get into such a kind of programmed routine. I think so much of this year is achieving conscious mastery of and spiritual responsibility of what we are co-creating in every moment.
Yeah, exactly. And I think with the Nessus energy, it's like this how can we let go? Well, part of it I think is one of the messages in the Nessus is to radically release victim mentality too. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's part of, again, speaking as just a human, but also speaking from my previous experience working in social work. I think we get stuck. Like we get this hook. We get hooked into being the victim, and we get hooked into these storylines of what that is. Oh, this thing happened to me, and as a child, I this, and then we get stuck with those stories, right? And part of the key of letting it go is, wait a second, whoa, I don't need to be a victim anymore. I can just be done with that. And then we can that lets us finally be free, and then we can, and I think in 2025, we have the opportunity. We're going to be so supported by all of these cosmic beings, by ourselves, by all kinds of other allies, um, to let that go. And then exactly to realize that we are co-creators together of what we are here to be doing, as the Astraea energy, as the Varda energy, as the Diana energy, as the Gaia energy, as the everything energy. Um, yeah.
And also being a victim is the opposite to sovereignty.
Yes.
It is
Yes.
literally giving away your power
Yes.
to someone external. You're just giving it away, scattering it. So, and the locus. In fact, Kathy Rose says this, but the locus of our power is going to become much more apparent in 2025. Are you deferring to any external authority, whether it's family, friend, boss, whoever? Or
Yeah.
are you operating from your center? And that's absolutely crucial if we're going to achieve our sovereignty.
Yes. And I think it's not a coincidence that, as we are entering 2025, we have this very powerful Pluto Mars opposition. It's
Yes.
like,
Wow. Tomorrow, exact. Yeah. Woof. It's
exactly.
it's about empowerment, isn't it? It's about
Mhm.
they're both about power.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So, yes. Um, and I'll just throw in, before we segue into the channeling, I'll just throw in another part of what's coming through in my channeling that feels really relevant to what we're just talking about, and really key, really important, is that mm, so yeah, so I think we all are aware, we all know that we're here to be ushering in this new era. Like that is literally, I think, why most of us are incarnated right now. It's definitely true for me. I'm pretty sure it's true for you. It's probably true for every single person watching this video. And this is the moment. I mean, this is it. Like this is it. This is right now. That's what we're here, and that's what we're doing. And so part of what is coming through in my work so powerfully is that we are not doing this alone. And I know I'm not the only person who knows that and feels that, and you certainly know that and feel that. Um, but the two big things that have been coming through for me is this. I keep getting shown this council of stars. So that's a whole other topic. Um, but I just want to name that I am feeling and seeing that more and more and more is that our sun is a literal star. And I think we often forget that, and that and this our star, the sun, is part of an infinite community of all of the other stars, and I feel them all converging in this council of stars. And then on a even a bigger level, what I keep feeling coming in is this council of infinity. So I've been holding a couple of, free gatherings to help channel in this and ground in our presence in this council of infinity. And part of that council of infinity is the stars, but another part is Gaia and all of her infinite realms. And so that's part of what you and I have been talking about with the inner mountain beings, which is one of the many, many, many things that have been channeling through me. But the point being that we're not alone. We are absolutely not doing this alone. Like I really could start crying. It's key that we know that, and that we remember that, and that we we come back into, again, to radically release any and all doubt that we are beings of infinity and that we each have our own way of knowing and connecting in with these beings who are right here, and they are absolutely holding space for us. And they're helping this birth to happen. They're very, very dedicated to it. That's what they're here to do too.
And I think
Yeah.
what's beautiful about your presentation here, Martha, is, in our recent past, we have felt separated from nature. Many of us in modern life separated from nature, particularly if you live in a city, and separated from our galactic family. We haven't, had any sort of. Most people have not had that sense of I'm part of a galactic family. Both of those are changing. Both of them. We are
Yeah.
getting a much greater connection to nature as we move forwards, the inner beings of the earth, and out to the stars, out to our galactic family. And so there's a much greater sense of malleability coming in here, of morphing and flowing, that all beings are flowing together, as it were. And there's something very beautiful, there's something very ancient about it. It takes me back to ancient Lemuria, it takes me back to Atlantis, and all of that wisdom coming back. And so what you've outlined here is really, really beautiful. And it might be quite helpful, Martha, if you let people know how they can find out where their natal positions are for these orbiting bodies, and also the transiting positions. Do you do that via astro.com?
I personally do it on, I use Astro Gold, but yeah, you can go to astro.com. I can find the numbers and I can give them to you, and you can put them in the show notes if you want. I mean, the asteroid numbers, etc. Um, yeah, Varda, as you know, Varda is not on Astro Gold. You do have to go to astro.com. Unfortunately, it's so frustrating to
Some
have
of
to.
them, yeah, some of them are on serenu.com.
I don't know that one.
SER, yes, Serenu, UNNA.com. And you just put in the date. Time doesn't matter. They move so slowly that just put in the date, and that will give you the list for whatever
Oh,
date, birth date, now date, whatever. And so that's
mm,
helpful too.
mm, yeah,
Beautiful.
wonderful.
It feels really, there's something, as you said, really magical about it. There's a feeling of life force. I often feel this when I'm walking in ancient woodland in the mornings. There's a feeling of life force just emanating from everything.
Yeah,
Obviously, the trees, the mosses, everything, the earth itself. There's an electrical simmering that's ready to burst forth in a bigger way, simply because our perception is changing. It was always there. We were just blocked from it. But now we're opening up our consciousness. We're able to perceive it and flow with it, and be telepathic with it and sensitive to it in a way we've seen the auras of trees and plants and mosses in a way that we've never done. But it's because our consciousness is shifting, and we're losing that sense of density.
yeah. Well, and as Heather has been pointing out in some of her recent videos, Rory Duff has been talking about this this prediction that he had, that at this particular recent solstice we just had, that would be when the Earth's ley lines would all converge, all come online permanently through all of the year, starting this past December 21st, 2024. And to be honest, for a couple of years when I would hear him say that, I would think, hmm. I when I go into my own praying and I feel into the earth, I can see ley lines. I can feel all of it continuously. And I have been feeling Gaia saying for years, yeah, that's what I need you guys to do that. I need you to come fully back online and remember that your body is a parallel of mine. Your body is me. And therefore, all of my ley lines are going to come back online as your body comes fully back online too, as an energy body system. And so I was a little skeptical of that timing, because I was thinking, but it's possible all the time. But the thing is, what's so amazing is that I just recently held my own gathering, at the solstice, and that is literally exactly what I felt happening at that timing. And then I heard Heather talk about Rory's prediction, and I went, oh,
Isn't it fabulous? Everything, everything outer is actually inner. It's the Hermetic
Mhm,
principle. Inner is outer, and
mhm,
everything is fractal. Everything
mhm.
is fractal. And this is
Yeah.
what we're going to discover about the universe, I think. And I've only mentioned this once publicly, but one of my past lives was as a man called Thomas Digges in the late 1500s, Digges. And I was taken on as a ward of court by Dr. John Dee, who was the royal astrologer to Elizabeth I. And Dr. John Dee taught me everything I knew about astronomy and astrology. And I wrote 4 books. There's even a Wikipedia page about Thomas Digges. But he was the first person to propose, and he wrote a paper on this without a calculator, that the universe was fractal. The universe was infinite. It was, like a series of Russian dolls. So that's an idea that's very close to my heart, a very old heart from the 1500s, but quite remarkable.
That's amazing, Pam. And that fits with the hitch your wagon to a star and hook
Yeah,
in, is that, yeah.
absolutely. So,
Oh, mm.
wow. So beautiful work, Martha. Anything else you'd like to share on those 4 orbiting bodies? Because they're going to be super powerful in their geometry, aren't they? Going to be very powerful at the eclipses coming up in March, but also in September as well.
Okay, yeah, so one very last fact I will throw in there for people who are more who follow the astrology words a little more. Um, in the fall eclipses, the nodes will no longer be squaring the galactic center, but the north node will be with Nessus. And and at that point, the nodes will still be squaring Astraea and Diana. So anyway, you get the point, right? So it's in the spring, in the March eclipses. Um, the nodes of the moon are going to be squaring the galactic center where Varda, Astraea, and Diana will all be. But then in our year 2025, Diana and Astraea will then go retrograde and they'll go backwards in Sagittarius. And by the time of the next eclipse season, they will no longer be with the galactic center, but they will still be squaring the nodes of the moon, and the north node will be with Nessus. So they'll be squaring Nessus, who's going to be on the north node of the moon during the eclipses of September.
Yeah, incredible. So they really are integrated with our collective selves path of growth this year.
Yeah.
Very, very strongly integrated, both their connection with the galactic center and with the North Node. That's where we are headed as our compass needle, to incorporate these energies you've been talking about. And maybe that's the final full stop. The buck stops here, the
Mm,
final full stop of the
mm.
old order. That's really, yeah, I'm getting goosebumps as well. So, and the fact that they are bringing a lot of divine feminine energy as well to move us away from the toxic masculine that we've had, I think is really beautiful. We're moving to a much more yin and receptive energetic state and losing the kind of efforting push, push, push that we've had in 3D. It's
Yeah.
very different. And so and they're all absolutely hammering my son, I have to say, in Python. Activated would be a very kind word. I think hammering is probably closer. But anyway, so it's going to be a very interesting year in that regard, but very exciting. So people who have planets really in the last decan, the last 10 degrees of the mutable signs, are going to be very activated by these 4 orbiting bodies that you've talked about.
Yeah, and even a 17, 18 and up.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
17,
yeah,
18 to the end of the sign of the
yeah,
mutable signs, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces. You can be very activated by these beautiful energies that Martha has been describing.
yeah, absolutely.
And I know that Martha has a ton more information on these beautiful energies that she's been talking about. There's so much on your website, and your offerings are so generous as well, Martha. There's so much for people to investigate and research and go off and do your own research, and use it as a launch pad as well, because we are all sharing and collaborating and coming together with this
Yeah.
information.
Yeah, and I have a free, I have some bunch of free things on my website, and on and on and on, and many things I could say. But yeah, absolutely. There's a free guide that I created with pretty pictures and all of that. And the link is on my website. Everything's livingtheonelight.com. Yeah, lots and lots and lots and lots going on.
You've been massively generous with an epic amount of work, Martha. And a lot of it, just to refer people, is on Martha's website. But it is an immense amount of research that you just give open-heartedly, for free. So I really want to thank you for that, because you're one of the pioneers in this area. So really want to honor that with you.
Thank you.
So anything else you'd like to say before we move into the channeling, Martha?
No, I think that's great.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and I will try to keep this succinct.
That's
Have a
fine.
sense of, yeah. Um, yeah, and also I'll say that, so I did recently hold this free gathering. It's called the Gathering of the Council of Infinity, at the solstice, and that is also available for free still, indefinitely on my website. I'll give you the links. Anyway, it's all at my website, but um I've started a free community, and that's where the recording is now housed. And so, you've been talking a lot in your videos about really, really suggesting people come into like-minded vibrational community. Sorry, hang on one second. My video just switched to my phone for no reason.
Inner Earth
Okay.
beings have just taken
Yeah.
over.
They're like, wait a second, we need to talk. Yeah, anyway, so that's another part of what I've just started. My guides are adamant that the biggest thing I'm supposed to be doing this year and moving forward is holding this space, this community space. And so the biggest community space I have is entirely free. Anybody please come and join that, and from there you find everything else, including the recording of that gathering, and on and on and on and on and on. So
Beautiful. You're being very, very generous with that. And community and collaboration is where it's at, with that
yeah,
Aquarian energy that we're moving into so strongly.
yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Okay.
So we'll give you a moment, Martha, just to drop in, and then we can start to speak to your beautiful inner Earth beings.
Yeah, and I'll also just contextualize who these beings are, really briefly. Bottom line, I live in Santa Barbara, California, and I live at the base of mountains. And long story short, I have longtime clients who I often go see up in these mountains. And many years ago, after a humongous fire came through and burned the side of the mountains there, these inner mountain beings just out of nowhere showed up and started speaking to me. And they told me that at some point they were going to need, I'm going to start crying, that they were going to need me to share their wisdom with the world. And that was a little scary. And you are the first person I dared to do that with publicly. So a few months ago.
Thrilled.
Um, and I mean, again, this is part of the role that you play for me, is like, I don't have words for how grateful I am, because it's very, very scary to sit here on YouTube and say, I channel beings that live inside of the mountain in Montecito, California. So,
That's okay. That's absolutely fine. People listening to this will just say, we love it. We love it. That's
right,
not weird.
right.
It's no
Yeah,
longer.
I know, exactly. So thank you again, Pam. But yeah, so these beings are incredibly precious, and I want to honor them. Again, I could just start crying. Um, but they're saying the time is now, and as came through in that solstice gathering, as I think Gaia is coming online and we're coming online, it's time when all of these beings who have been hiding in the shadows, like you've been talking about possible Earth reemerging from oceans. What I'm feeling is part of that either maybe literally would happen, but if not even literally, is that these beings are coming back out of the shadows and back into our consciousness and our awareness, and it's time now, and they are needed. We need them, they need us. We have to come back into this reality that we are the one. So these inner earth beings are a central part of what's coming through for me, and a central part of what I'm going to be holding in 2025. Yeah, so that's who's going to be coming through me right now. And
you have some particular beings that you regularly connect with, I think, Martha.
yeah, so the main male being who came to me several years ago, his name is Ben Weiss, what he calls himself, and he, I don't know, he's become a friend. It's really interesting. I don't know how to describe him. He's really, really tall, maybe 7 feet tall, really thin, and he takes me. You attended a gathering that I held where I channeled him, and he takes me into, and he took us all into the inside of his world inside the mountains, and introduced us to his wife, and we went into his kitchen and then into his backyard, his garden, which is all crystal, made out of crystalline plants. And then we went into his backyard and sat under these big oak trees, and overlooking the Pacific Ocean, which is, where I live. And then those beings basically led us through a healing experience. And yeah, and so a big part of what these beings are saying to me now is that in 2025, I'm going to be holding a year-long course called A Year with Ben Huis and Friends. And actually this ties in so amazingly with the Nessus and everything we just talked about. What they're showing me is that every month they're going to channel a guided experience, and in those guided experiences, they and other benevolent realms like unicorns and fairies and whoever it is that's wanting to come through, dragons, I'm not sure exactly who, but every month for sure, the inner mountain beings will be holding this. They'll be like our hosts. And then these infinite benevolent realms will come through and start sharing with us basically the keystones, like the needed healing wisdom that we've forgotten, the ancient wisdom that we need in this time for people who are called to do it. I mean, not everybody needs this, okay, but for anybody who's called to it, the wisdom that is key for us as we are grounding and ascending with Gaia and as Gaia. And so part of what I'm feeling that I think they're going to be talking about in the first 3 months is what they're showing me is really about the releasing of karma. So I think it's fascinating that that's going to coincide. That'll be January, February, March. That's going to coincide with the Nessus Saturn conjunction. It's like interesting. And then another key component that also coincides with a lot of what you've been talking about that I think is going to be the next chunk of time of the year is going to be exploring the infinite realms of the heart space. And, what are that we talk about needing to come back to the heart, but what is the heart? So that's a whole gigantic topic that, we could talk about for hours. But they've been showing me that really, really strongly too, as a powerful need in this year for us to deeply understand what the heart really is. It's not just the heart, it's a whole, like you talk about being a vortex and infinite dimensions to it. And so much that we need to remember about how we conceive of it and how we maintain it, how we honor it, how we nurture it. We've forgotten how to nurture our own hearts because we've just been givers, right? And yeah, anyway, there's so much there. Yes, so clearly I could go on and on and on.
Wonderful. Absolutely. No, it's wonderful. All relevant and all exciting and not at all weird. No, really
Yeah.
wonderful, Martha.
Yeah. So I'm honored that they want to speak through me, and yes. Okay. Okay. Any other questions before I start?
Shall I let you drop in first and then ask? Or shall I ask?
Oh, yeah, I think, well, you go ahead and, but yeah, I think, yeah, go ahead and say anything
Let's
you want
start.
to say.
So, what is the most important message for humanity in 2025? I think we'll start there.
Great. Okay. So just the reason I'm looking down is because I have specific music I play for myself. You can't hear it, but to help me channel. Um, okay, so yes. Hello and welcome. So my name is Ben Weiss. And as Martha said, I am a being of inner earth. And you all are beings of inner earth on some level. And so, really, ultimately, I am your friend. And the biggest message that I have, that our whole realm has, that I would say maybe even your own soul has in this time, is that the time is now. That this is not a time to be talking about the future. This is a time to be talking about the immediate present now, that we are converging as one, that Gaia is emerging as the being that she is, as the totality, the wholeness, and the oneness that she is. And so are you. And this is a time, really, ultimately, more than anything, to be, like you both were speaking about, to be radically letting go of those stories, that in this first part of your lifetime, and in the many, many, many lifetimes you've probably had as Earth, in the time of forgetting, part of the time of forgetting was having storylines and karma, difficult, tragic karma. And now is the time of remembering. The time of forgetting is done. And a key component of the time of remembering is that every single one of you, we are needing every single one of you to step fully into this reality that you embody, your whole being is the time of great remembering. So part of being the time of great remembering is letting go, completely, totally letting go, unhook completely from those storylines, from that karmic patterning. And like Martha said, do this in a responsible, grounded, held way. And yet, please make this choice. As you're watching this, it's probably near the beginning of your year, what you consider 2025. So you often talk about New Year's resolutions. If we could request that you make one resolution, it would be this: please let go of those old stories and be the remembering. And Pam, do you have any other
Yeah,
questions or?
beautiful. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for that, Ben Huis. And the other question I would ask is, can you tell us more about how we will start to understand the heart as being so central moving forwards? You know, the physical heart, the energetic heart, and perhaps something called the sacred heart.
Yeah. Yes. So, thank you for that question. A humongous part of the remembering that we're going to be speaking about through this whole year and beyond, that we're so excited to be speaking about and helping you each to remember it in your own way, is the crystalline light form realm of existence and the quantum realms of existence. So in our world, part of what we have maintained over these eons as we've been hidden in the time of forgetting is this ancient, deep knowing of Gaia and of existence, and really of you also, because again, remember, you are a being of Gaia and you are a being of the cosmos. You are a being of everything. So there's no separating here. But part of the wisdom that we have been keepers of, and now we're needing to speak about right now, is this inner deep knowing of crystalline light realms and quantum light realms, and the crystalline and quantum ways of being that Gaia is now moving into, and that is crucial for you to be moving into on a body level, on an energy body level, on a psychic level, on an emotional body level, on every single level. And so that includes the heart. And we'll be speaking about this over this year too in so much depth. But the when we approach the heart as a quantum body being and also as a crystalline realm being, even now we maybe invite you to feel what that feels like in yourself, to even just hear or feel those words, that your heart is of course a physical muscle, just as we think of it as part of the cardiovascular system. It's also an energy being, just like we talk about the heart chakra. But just as you've mentioned, Pam, the heart is a vortex. It's literally a portal. It's part of the portal of great remembering. So we're in this time of great remembering, and the heart is a key component of that. But one of the things that we're going to be hopefully supporting everyone in the ways that are just right for every person is that part of the time of forgetting has been this incredibly out of balance notion that to give means giving from lack. And of course, logically, that just does not work. Yet, most of you, many of you, maybe all of you have been trained, especially if you happen to be somebody who's very empathetic, which probably all of you are, somebody who's very sensitive, and especially, especially those of you raised as girls and women, that you've been trained that your heart is here to serve, and yet you have not been trained in how to serve your own heart, how to nurture your own heart, and how to care for it. And that won't work anymore. It hasn't been working, actually. but it's especially crucial now as you let go of those karmic patterns, as you let go of all of what that Nessus Saturn conjunction and Pisces is part of this, is supporting you to be radically releasing that. Please radically release this idea that giving means giving from lack. It does not. So there's so much support also with the Venus retrograde from Aries into Pisces and the Mercury retrograde, but especially the Venus retrograde. The Venus retrograde will meet Neptune as it's moving from Pisces into Aries, and that's a whole nother layer that'll be happening at the end of March. That's a whole nother layer of beautifully inviting in the wholeness of the infinite layers of the being of your heart and the whole vortex of what the heart is and the portal of what the heart is. If you think of, that's an entire topic, but if you think of Venus and Neptune being octaves of each other and octaves of love, and that's something that Heather Ensworth is talking about as well, they're going to be meeting together as Neptune makes its first entrance, going from Pisces into Aries, and as Venus makes a retrograde from Aries into Pisces. So they'll be bridging that Pisces Aries energy as love, as transcendent love, and also as love that is self-sovereign, Aries, and that restores itself, that receives and gives in equal measure, in total equality, so that we all thrive and so that our hearts can become the strong, beautiful, infinitely present vortexes for this time of great remembering that we're all here to be.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Ben Weiss. And then really finally, Martha and I, along with many others, are seeing that very important Saturn-Neptune conjunction on the 20th of February 2026 as a whole new episode for humanity. And what can you share from your perspective about that, please?
Oh, we are so excited about that time. Yeah, and what I would say, what I feel arising in me in that is tears, tears of gratitude and also tears of hope. Because that time frame holds such incredible potential, and we as the intermountain beings and also the infinite realms of benevolent beings are all here with incredible, powerful love. We're all here holding space and hoping that every single one of you will make the choices I just mentioned, make the choice to be the great remembering. Because it's at that time when we can really be known, really come together, really co-create these structures that combine both that Saturn and Neptune energy at the 0 degree of Aries point, this brand new world in a sense. And we're really hoping, praying, putting our full beings into this reality that you will choose to be the great remembering. Just like that Aries energy, it has to be your choice, a self-sovereign decision of you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And is there any other message that you would like to leave us with, Ben Huis, today?
Yeah, what I'm feeling is really actually Gaia wanting to say that a reminder that we all are her. So we as inner mountain beings, you as animal human beings, all of us are Gaia. And she and you and I, we all are in this together. She loves us so much, and we have chosen to be incarnated as her, to co-create as her. And she's holding this space also. She's part of this council of infinity, holding the space of everything with incredible, passionate, powerful love beyond anything we can imagine. And so she's really wanting to convey this reality that she is you. We are her. We are never, never, never alone. Infinitely loved.
Beautiful, Ben Huis. That was really exquisite and very uplifting for everyone that is going to hear that. And I really thank you and honor you and for holding the sacred space for us in so much patience for humanity to make the right choice. Bless you, bless you, bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam.
That was really beautiful, Martha. Thank you so
Mm,
much. Your
there,
work is just going in leaps and bounds, and I really want to congratulate you and thank you for the I know the immense amount of work you put into it, but you're also extraordinarily gifted with it as well. So and the channeling is coming on apace for sure. So thank you. So anything else you'd like to share with us? Everything's on your website, Living the One Light, and we'll put the blurb underneath. Anything else that's particularly coming up that you want to share? You've got a lot of things happening this year with the community.
yeah. Yeah, I can mention, yes, actually. So a couple of free things I'll highlight. One is that free Cosmic Wisdom of 2025, where I talk about some of the similar themes you and Kathy talked about, but anyway, my version basically. There's that's on my website for free. Um, in March, I'm actually going to be hosting a free summit, which I think lots of people here would probably love, 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 love to be part of. Please sign up for that. That's available on my website. That is, I was amazed at what he just said about the Venus Neptune.
That was beautiful. That was beautiful.
Oh wow, because this is yeah, just amazing how these things work. Okay. So in March, I'm co-hosting a free summit um called Becoming Superconductors of Love.
Oh wow.
And yeah, and it's so I'm going to be co-hosting it with another wonderful astrologer, Kaylin Castell, who I highly recommend to anybody and everybody. She's one of my favorite people. And the speakers, people will probably know, so several of them, including Heather Ensworth, Melanie Reinhart, Keone Hanalei, and other really wonderful people. But it's going to be a relatively small number of speakers, but it's going to be held over the eclipse season and over equinox, and it's going to end on the day that Neptune enters Aries. So the whole entire point, it's totally free. There's not going to be any of the VIP upgrades or any of that. It's just indefinitely going to be available for free. And the point is we want to hold space as a collective to really harness this. The energies of that eclipse season are so powerful, as you know, because it's going to be really spanning that Pisces Aries dance that's going to be happening. And it is going to usher in Neptune's entrance into Aries, right? So when Kaylin and I, just like you, actually also have, we have all three of us. This is so fascinating. All three of us have Sun in Pisces and Venus in Aries.
Mercury, well, Mercury at 1 degree of Aries, so
Yeah,
gonna be
yeah.
it's gonna be an active year. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So all three of us, I think, embody this Pisces Aries combination, of the unconditional love and all of that, et cetera. But then also this sort of fierceness, like, no, we got to do this. Like, we're here to do this. Let's do it now. Um, and so I think that's a big part of what that energy is going to be in March. And so the point of the summit is to all collectively together make this choice, the exact choice that Ben Weiss was just speaking of. Let's do it now. Like, come on, let's be superconductors of love. Let's literally catalyze the world into, let's move into the vortex of love together, and yeah, so please, anybody join that. It's available. And then this year-long thing with Ben Weiss is starting actually next Friday, January 10th, and that'll go for the whole year. And then in February, I'm restarting my Astrology 101 course, which is great for anybody who wants to explore astrology more from like a soul, your own soul wisdom outward way. And there's, I could say lots more about that, but I'd love to have other people join that. And then in April, I'm starting a course that I'm also really excited about called The Stars Speak. And so that taps in more to the Council of Stars that I was speaking to. So everything I do, every single thing I do is channeled, and including the decision to do it. I'm told by my guides what courses to hold. And those are the 3 they want me to do this year. And so in the Stars Speak course, there's also going to be guest speakers who are Heather Ensworth, Kaylin Castell, Julia Balaz, and Divine Harmony, and Chris Skidmore. And so, again, a lot of familiar names there for people probably. And it's going to be a time when the Council of Stars is really going to converge, and we're going to come back into our own deep knowing of who these stars are and what messages they're trying to bring through for us in this time. So we're going to learn about them, on the cognitive level, like the astronomy and the science and the blah, blah. But we're also going to really deeply connect into our own way of knowing them, letting their messages come through, letting them come back into direct communication with us, similar to the Ben Weiss kind of way of knowing. And also same in my astrology course, that's what we do with the planets and the signs, and it's more of a, what are the planets trying to help us remember in this time of remembering. Yeah, I think those are all the things. There's so much.
Beautiful, Martha. It's a very rich offering. So yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. So really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your time, for your talents, your insights, your gifts. I really love this actually, and I think everybody listening will get so much out of it. So God bless you, and thank you everybody for listening and sending big love to everybody out there. This is going to be a big year of love revolution. We
Yes. Yes, that's the way to sum it up. So good. Thank you.
Much love, everyone. Bye for now.